both of them, Donna Brown and Johanna Johnson. Donna, a little bit about her, that she was a sixth grade teacher, librarian, and author for 26 years. She is wrote for the Gazette, and so one of the things that wanted to, her father wrote prior to that in the Hammonton News for many, many years, and Donna put together some of his his best articles into a book, and if you haven't read it, you should. We have them at the museum for sale. So she followed in her father's footsteps, and it's a shame that they're not anymore. I mean, one of the things that when you got the Gazette, the first thing you did was you would go, at least I did, I would go to Donna's articles, and so we miss that. As far as she still writes for a couple magazines, and in the Presbyterian Church, she's a Sunday school teacher. She's one of those people that for his volunteers, hands go up and she does it all. So anyway, and then I speak to so many people too that had her in school, and they will talk about Donna Brown and what she meant to them, you know, in her sixth grade situation. So anyway, I'm going to start it off with you, Donna, and she came in at the last minute and put together this program for us. And when she's concluded, we'll go to the next.
Bill, that was very nice. Thank you. But you could take this again.
It's really hard to do anyway.
I don't know if I need the microphone. Should I use it? Would that be
No,
better?
no.
I don't need it,
Good
right?
like that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I have a lot of pictures. I've been going through my father, Joe Wilson, who was the editor of the Hammonton News for 35 years, and he had tons of pictures of Hammonton, anything you would want. And my sister has been going through the negatives, and she has been putting them together and putting them on discs. So eventually, anything you'll want, my sister will have indexed. They're not indexed yet, but I've been going through them, and I found some good ones for tonight. When I was asked to do this, and one thing, I have to go back and look at dates because I'm terrible with numbers. But when I was asked to do this, my first thought was, I grew up in the Hammonton Presbyterian Church, but I couldn't think of what my first memory was. And then it hit me, and I remembered every detail. And if you grew up in the 50s, you have the same memories. My grandmother, I remember I was about 4, and she said, you are going to have the best day of your life. You are going to Sunday school. It is going to be so great. There's going to be kids to play with. And I thought, okay, because grandmothers never lie, right? So I let her curl my hair and put those pink curlers from the Tony Permanents in so I could look like Shirley Temple. And she bought me a new dress, and the next day I put it on, and it itched so badly. It was organza or something, and it was the kind of skirt that went out with the crinolines, so that when you sat down, it went up in the front. And then she put Mary Janes on me, and little socks with more ruffles, and then she put lace gloves on my hands that were so stiff that they would have stood up by themselves. And I'm thinking, this church better be pretty good. So she takes me and she drops me off in this big room. And there are about 25 kids of all different ages. And I'm looking around, and all the boys have ties, and they're going like this. And all the girls are itching. And so I felt right at home right away. And the next thing that happened was Helena Packard. She was a home ec teacher at the high school. She came in and told us all to stand up and practice marching because she was going to play on the piano Onward Christian Soldiers Marching Off to War. So we're all marching. Now that marching makes your dress itch more. And so it was terrible. And I'm thinking, I'm not a fan of this church. I'm really not a fan. So then after a few songs, this big man comes in, and he was Reverend Tamaccio. He was the minister. And he gets out an easel, and he gets out a big board, and it was covered with blue flannel. And then he got out paper dolls. And that's when I thought, well, maybe it's not so bad. Then it was the burning bush, and I can't believe I remember this, the burning bush and Moses, and he did God's voice really deep, and Moses didn't want to do what God wanted him to do in the bush. But I kept thinking the whole time, how did he get the paper dolls to stick to that fabric? That's all I could think of. Church must be magic. So church is magic, you're itching, but it's getting better. And so when he was I'll tell you, they put sandpaper on the back of the dolls, okay, in case you didn't know that. That's how they stuck. I looked. Anyway, I still was like 50-50 about church. And all of a sudden, Bob Small's wife, Velma, who was my Sunday school teacher, came in with a gigantic tray of homemade cupcakes. And I said, okay, I love this place. I'll be back next week. And it is a wonderful place, the Presbyterian Church. Now, that had nothing to do with what I was going to talk about, but at least you know my feelings about the church. I'm going to take you back to 1861. 1861, Kansas had just become a state. There were 34 states. Hammonton did not have a downtown. Our downtown, there were a couple businesses, but all the action in 1861 was down on Elvin's Corner, which was the corner of the White Horse Pike and Bellevue Avenue, except the White Horse Pike wasn't called the Pike, and it wasn't called Route 30, it was called Main Road, because it was the main road from Camden and Philadelphia to the shore. And that's where all the action was. So if you lived in Hammonton at that time, you could have bought eggs at Elvin's store, which was a general store. It was everything. They had a blacksmith in the back of it. They had food, they had clothes, they had hardware. It was a combination of everything. If you wanted a dozen eggs, it would have been 20 cents. If you wanted some stewing beef, 10 cents a pound. If you wanted to make yourself a dress, because there were no dress shops in town, you would have bought your fabric at 10 cents a yard for cotton. It was an interesting time in Hammonton, and that's where everybody got their news, at Elvin's. Oh, if you were a teacher in the elementary school, which went up to 8th grade, Hammonton paid between $200 and $300 for their teachers per year. And if you wanted to rent a room, it was $4.50 a month, and that included all of your meals.
Wow.
So now you have a little idea of what Hammonton was like. I have some pictures here, and I'll put them out later, but one of them is Bellevue Avenue in the mud, and perhaps, even though this picture is from 1907, it was about the same back in 1861. Nothing had changed. I can tell you this, that in 1917, my father's family moved to Bellevue Avenue from Philadelphia. Their house in the middle of the block between 4th Street and Liberty Street was all cow pastures and woods. There was nothing except one house, and that was the house they purchased. There was going to be a development, and the person went bankrupt, and my parents bought that. And my father said not until he was grown did they start building houses on Bellevue at that point. And the side streets were all dirt, as was Bellevue. Anyway, there were 9 people in Hammonton that year who decided they wanted to build a church. They wanted to start a Presbyterian church. And they went to Presbytery, which is the group that's above all the churches. It's like the ruling group above us. And they went to them and said they wanted a church. And they got permission. 2 of the people were from New York State, and 7 of them were from Elwood. And I don't know why they decided they wanted a Presbyterian church, but they started meeting in Union Hall. Now, Union Hall was on the corner of Vine and Central, but I don't know which corner. That's where they were meeting for several years. Northeast corner?
Northeast, yeah, I think you call it
okay.
northeast
Yeah,
That's
corner.
where the Baptist church is.
Where the Baptist church is? Okay.
I think I just read that.
Oh, all right. Good, thank you. I didn't know that. Anyway, they didn't have the money to build the church, so they were going there. They had a minister ordained who joined them and tried to build up the church. And within a year, they had 25 people. The next year, over 50 people, and it kept growing and growing. And they finally decided that they needed a church. And in 1866, They built a church on the corner, maybe you know this one too, on the corner of Liberty and Bellevue, and it was on the south side, but I don't know which of the two blocks, if anybody, either side, I don't know. But anyway, they built this church, and it was small, but it kept growing and growing. And I know you really can't see it from here, but I'm just explaining it, and then I'll set the map for you. I have a picture of the first 5 ministers, and I just think it's interesting to see how they looked. And so I will put that out too. Anyway, let me check my dates, because I'm not good with dates. At this time, what was happening, the railroad came in 1858, and a few factories popped. 9?
54.
Oh, my dad had the wrong notes.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
54.
Okay, 54 it came in. Did they build the station in 58?
No, the only, yes, the downtown station
Yeah,
was
downtown
built
station was
then.
58. Okay,
Yes.
maybe that's where I got it wrong. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, keep correcting me.
No,
No, I appreciate it, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the town shifted. Blacks built their department store, factories lined both sides of the railroad track. There was the shoe factory, and there was a grist mill at one time on one of the Second Street, I think it said. But anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with the church. But they decided that people walked to church, and everybody was building houses around the railroad. And so the church was so far out of the way. Now today we think a couple blocks, it doesn't mean anything, but they decided to move, and they purchased the land where the Presbyterian Church is now. And in case you don't know which church that is, because people get confused, we're the brick church next to Veterans Park, and we're sandwiched between Veterans Park and the big parking lot. Anyway, they decided they were going to build a church, and they first moved that original church that I showed you to the lot. They built stables behind it so people could bring their horses and carriages to church, and they actually rented them out at one time to make money. And the church kept growing and growing. In 1889, we decided we needed a bigger church for years. They were working on it. They were collecting money. They were trying to get new members. But the Italian immigrants started coming in, and by 1889, Presbytery decided that we needed a mission in Hammonton. And so the little wooden church was moved to Tilton Street. It's on Tilton and Pleasant. And I think it's a duplex now.
Yeah.
But that was the original Presbyterian church. And I think it was only maybe 6 years that it was used as a mission for the immigrants. And I did find a record that they gave them clothing and food, and they tutored their children and, helped them a lot, very similar to a lot of the things we do at the church today. A lot of that legacy has gone on, where, we're still helping people. And I wasn't prepared to talk about all of that, but maybe you can add that to yours. Okay. They finally built the Presbyterian church that we have now, and I have one of the original pictures. And when you see this, it is the dirt road in front. Bellevue Avenue still is not paved. But I want you to look at the doors. The doors in some of these pictures, they were magnificent. They were beautiful wood. I miss them too. They don't know where they are. I know where they are. My brother-in-law Delfino used them for paneling because they were thrown out in front of the church. And he has them in the bedroom. And actually, one of the door things is a towel rack in their bedroom. But they were in the trash. It's the hinge. I think he has some of the hinge. I think he only took one door, when they were all out in the trash, but what a shame. But anyway, take a look at that. I have another picture here which I think you might enjoy. It is the old Acme building next to the church. And if you look, there are screen doors on the front of the church, in front of those beautiful doors. So that's interesting. In the mid-50s, I'm not sure, I can't do numbers. In the mid-50s, they decided that we needed a Christian Ed building. and 60s, right, you're right, 60, like 65 or 4? See, you're a number, that's good. Okay, we're good, that's it. Okay, wait a second. In this picture, you can see the manse, and the manse, which housed the minister and his family, was moved. And I remember as a child going with my father and watching it go down Bellevue Avenue. And it is on Caldwell. And I want to go by and see if you can still identify it. Can you? Do you know?
I don't know, but I know there's two of them, the original manse and that one.
And they are at the same.
They're two different places.
Oh, okay. All right, and this is a picture that was in the Hammonton News of them putting down the foundation of the Christian Ed building.
Donna,
Yes?
the street you mentioned, was it Caldwell?
Caldwell, Colwell?
Oh,
Where
that's
is
along the
that?
railroad track, on
It's,
the other,
it's from Third
Rick is-
Street to,
around where Rick is, back that way, I think, isn't it?
no, I think it's closer to the Catholic Church. It's a side street that goes from,
Oh, okay,
It's
no,
like
that's
goes from-
cottage, isn't it?
yeah, Third Street to,
Yeah.
Railroad, no, Egg Harbor Road.
One up from the light.
I don't know, I looked at it on
That's
MapQuest
Caldwell.
today to see where it
It's one
was.
up from the light
Oh, okay.
and the left,
It's near
and it's the,
that side.
on the right.
But
And
what-
it's the second house in from the next street.
Yeah,
You're
it's
thinking
near
of maybe
Second Street.
cottage.
It's near Second Street.
Near Second Street.
Second and Colville
Right.
is where it is, Second
And
and
Caldwell.
Colville.
Okay.
Off of,
No,
so
it's not on
beyond,
Second.
yeah, beyond Fairview Avenue.
Yeah, but
It's on the other
between.
side where
It's
Ann
between.
DeWasser
It's
had
in the
their
middle.
general store.
Right, it's in between, it's between,
No.
Second and, North Egg Harbor Road, according to this history.
Well,
I think that's where Donio lived.
It's right next to
I'm gonna
Jack
go
Donier's
tomorrow.
house.
I wanna go look for that
It's
house,
on
take
the
the
road.
It's right
picture.
next to Jack Donier's house.
All right, I
Jack
don't-
Donio's, yeah, the street that Jack Donio lived on.
Yeah, you're correcting this history then, so, this is one, somebody else's.
I
Yeah,
have
that's where I-
old Bible school and Sunday school pictures, so you can see how many people, this is 1936. And those are the children that were in Sunday school in the Presbyterian Church. And I have two, one is 53 and one is 52. And I'm hoping maybe you can identify some of the people in the pictures. I have another one which was from the 60s, that was in the Hammonton News. And it's 1962, and the only person I know in it is Lori Pioe, who lived on Bellevue Avenue in the house with the tower that they're redoing now. But I don't know anyone else, so if you can help me identify them, that would be great. And the last thing I wanted to tell you is that churches seem to have angels, and they're people that are just angels. They just go beyond what anybody would think anyone could do. And we have them in our church now, and I'm sure you have them in your churches. They're people that always step up, always volunteer, and they do things behind the scenes, not where anybody knows what they're doing. And those are the people that make the churches. And they allow all of us to enjoy going to church on Sunday. Well, the Presbyterian Church had a man named Eli Stockwell. He was president of the bank. His father had been president of the bank. And he lived on Bellevue Avenue, and he was a Presbyterian. His wife died, and there is another tombstone, and I can't quite make it out, but we think it's his daughter. I've been talking to Joe Bernardo at Oak Grove Cemetery. And in the minutes, and you might have read it in there, we're supposed to be taking care of his grave. Over and over again, he kept paying off our bills. He paid for the stables. We were supposed to give him money for them, and then he said he wrote it off. And then the next thing, he wrote it off. And before he died, he said, all I want is for you to take care of my grave, because he knew there was nobody to take care of it. Well, my grandchildren and I went, and obviously nobody is taking care of his grave. Of course, he died in 1889. So I'm sure at the time people did, but over the years we forgot about it. Well, here's what the tombstones look like. And here is my grandson, after we cleaned it up a little. And this weekend, My grandson, my granddaughter, and I are going to go plant bulbs for the spring all around his grave.
Beautiful.
And, so that he won't be forgotten. All right, that's it. So if any, I can answer any questions, or maybe somebody else can answer them.
Is he in Oak Grove then?
Yes, he's in Oak
He
Grove.
is in Oak Grove.
He's, if you go in the little road across from the high school, not on Bellevue, I think he's to the front to the right. But, he's right there. It's very obvious where he is. And so, maybe when you go to church Sunday, look around and see who your angels are. And I'll put these out for you, and, now it's your turn.
Yeah, now it's my turn.
I was gonna ask you if the house was still there, or if that was knocked down, or your.
Which
On
house?
Caldwell?
No, on Bellevue, you
Oh,
said your
Bellevue.
father had.
Oh, yeah, it's still there. My brother lives there, yes.
Which one?
It's across from the synagogue. It's hidden behind trees, and it's
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
kind of, yeah. At one time, my grandparents owned all the land to the other side of the stream by the high school, or it's the middle school now. That was all the one huge lot. And then over the years, when Pleasant Street went through, they sold off lots, and then they sold off lots on Bellevue. But,
Now, let me see the vacation Bible. I went.
here, I'll hand them all to you, and you can pass it around or whatever.
There you go.
Very good.
That's for you.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Why don't we save the questions till after we're all finished? And so our next speaker, Presbyterian Church, is Johanna Johnson. A little bit about Johanna, that she is taught in the Hammonton school system, and then curriculum coordinator of the Atlantic County Institute. She's been involved with Hammonton Heart and Soul. She's been on the school board. She was voted Citizen of the Year by the Hammonton Lions Club. And she, like Donna, is one of the people in the Presbyterian Church that always raises her hand, and so she's involved in so many things. She is really she and Donna both joys to have, within our church. And with that, I'll turn it over to.
Unlike Donna, I need something to lean on. I'm not generally a public speaker, so you have to bear with me. Interesting things that you said. 1916 is when the first organ was bought for the church, and it lasted 60 years. It cost about $2,000 in 1916. When they bought it again and they ran a campaign to raise money for it, it cost $32,000 in 1976. So it's an old church. The cornerstone was laid in 1895, October 9th, I believe it is, 1895. And that's what we're celebrating, the 130 years of the building and 164 years of ministry to this community. And yes, it did start in Elwood and it went to DaCosta. It always was a mission church. The missions have always been to help those who haven't been able to help themselves. The Italian church was the one that is the original church on Parkhurst and Pleasant, that looks like a duplex. That's
Pleasant
where,
And Tilton.
right,
Yeah.
at Pilton, yes. And that's where the Italian church was. It was there for quite a few years, and if you come to our celebration, you will see the congregation, a lot of men, women, and children who were the Presbyterians in that church. And it was called, because that was the Presbyterian church, the new church wanted to keep themselves separate. They didn't want to have any confusion, so they started calling themselves, instead of the Hammonton Presbyterian Church at Hammonton, they were calling themselves the First Presbyterian Church at Hammonton, so that wouldn't be confused. The celebration is about the people within the walls. It is one of the themes that if you come to the service 11 o'clock on Sunday, you will hear it spoken in many ways. Dorian Tomasella wrote a beautiful poem that will be in our Sunday bulletin, and that's what she talks about. Not so much the brick and mortar, it's all about the people within. Without those people within, that church would have crumbled a long time ago. Like all churches struggling today, we're no different. But as I read the history, this church has struggled from the get-go. Because it's a mission church, giving as it does, they're taking care of its own business has always been a little difficult to do. So the mortgages along the way have been paid by good angels, even one whose last name was Moore, and he had a mortgage, holding a mortgage for the church many years ago in the early 1900s, and he, because they tried to pay it back and couldn't get it all, he paid it off, and then he built a church in Haddonfield, and it is a magnificent church that he built. He paid for that too. So a lot of angels along the way. A lot of times trying to keep the church in good stead. I'm the chairman of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I like that stuff. I think I got it from my dad. I like building things. I like seeing things fixed, and so I've been going through the history, and I'm finding they have the same issues we're still having. You know, the leaking, the windows, the heating system. It's all those things. It's been going on for years, but the people within the church are the ones who put it all together and keep it together. And though we're small, it is probably the most people-centered church that I've ever been in. Everybody, and you can go into those church buildings anytime during the week, and you're gonna run into somebody that's doing something in the church. Volunteerism is what that church is built on. The brick and mortar, we can take care of, but all the other things that have to happen to make a church stay alive and vibrant is the people that are within it. So on Sunday, we're going to celebrate not only the brick and mortar, but the 164 years of the ministry of the church, which is, again, as I said, always being helping someone else. Presently, and probably since the 1960s, I kind of figured it out through looking back in the history, we have offered clothing to people who needed it. And we presently are still doing the same thing. We have the Goods for the Neighborhood program that's open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 9 to 12, headed by Hilda Lugo and her volunteers. And people bring all kinds of things. You would be amazed at what people bring into that basement. Besides clothing, household goods, some small pieces of furniture. We can't handle big pieces, only little pieces of furniture. And then we give it away. We get it all together, we sort it and put it out, and people come in. We serve about 200 families a month, and that's a lot. And last week, when Hilda was showing me that we had 5 new families who needed help that came down into the basement, and they get anything that they need there. And Hilda sometimes kind of squirrels away certain things, and when she sees families come in with babies especially, she'll find little pieces of furniture that maybe they can use. So she kind of squirrels it away for just those kinds of situations. That is what the church continues to do. We have, in an effort to raise funds, because all churches need to do that, we have taken some of the very best of things, like clothing that still has labels on them because no one's ever worn them, and household goods that are in fantastic shape, almost new. And we have opened a little gift and thrift shop in the atrium of the Christian Ed building It's right there, we have the church, the Chris Raymond courtyard, and then in the front of the Christian Ed building is where our little store is. And we just opened last week for the first time from 10 to 2, it's 4 hours. And it was our first day open and we made $300. Most of the things are, most of the items that are there, no matter whether they have tags or not, the clothing especially, all children clothing, all infant clothing is $1. Don't care what it is, it's $1. Children's clothes, $3. Adult clothes is either $4 or $5. We don't charge anything more than that. Then we have some specialty items, that's the gift part of it. And we, Lori Orsi has taken it upon herself to look everything up, that these really like little figurines and dishes, dishware, pottery, and found it on eBay, and then she discounts it further. So they're all, those kinds of things are tagged. And they truly are beautiful things that people can't find anybody who wants them. I know my children don't want the old stuff anymore. It drives me crazy, because I love antiques. That's why, that's the gift side of it. So we're very excited about that. So we'll be open every Saturday from 10 to 2. As for the service on Sunday, we'll begin at 11 o'clock. Pastor Rachel has really stepped up with a beautiful sermon. It's also World Communion Sunday, and she'll be celebrating that as well. The choir has been working on new music specifically for this anniversary. And we've invited as many family members of people who no longer are with us. We're trying to open the doors back up to them and welcome them in. And so it's old and new families that will be, and friends that we'll be hoping to have come to the service. And I'm gonna name a few people over the years, and some of you, especially Hammontonians, you know, original Hammontonians, I'll put it that way, you're all Hammontonians if you live here. If you remember some of these names of people, the Klaus family, the Wood family, the Packard family, the Parkhurst family, the Whiffen family, the Schenk family, the Contenicios, the Vaughns, the Seeleys, the Valles, the Hernandez, the Jones, Austins, Chalks, Ramashatis, Wilson, Petreka, Godfrey, and Brown. These names are the foundation of this church. They are the ones that helped build it to get it where it is today. I'm a newcomer. I didn't join the church until 1995. So I'm celebrating my 30th anniversary as being a member of this church. After this service, we have what we're calling History Hall. We have so many volunteers that have done such a beautiful job of preparing this building and the hall. Becky Villani has painted a huge tree on one of the walls in the hall, right outside the sanctuary. And there will be pictures of the past people who made this church. In addition, the wall right across from it will have pictures of all of the ministers from the get-go, and there's quite a few of them. It's funny, they were all in the very early years. They only stayed a year or two because it was a mission church, but as the years went on, then the years started growing in the times that they spent. Reverend Curitan was there for some time, and Camacho, and of course Hinch. Hinch was there for a very long time, and I'm sure many of you may remember him with very fond memories. So those will be on display. In addition to that, we'll have a table where there are artifacts, and a lot of the pictures that we have are from Sunday school. Take that back, Vacation Bible School. and there are huge numbers of kids between the Methodist Church, the Episcopal Church, and the Presbyterian Church. They all kind of got together, the Presbyterian Church having the largest facility. And so all these kids, all these faces, I recognized my husband immediately in one of those. Yes, and his brother, and Carol Orsi, as she grew from one year to the next. I could pick her out in the crowd. They're really great pictures, so we have those ready for display as well. In what is now the atrium shop, there was a big glass case where historical items were stored. Well, with the sun and the hot and the cold air, everything in there began to deteriorate. There was some altar cloths that were in there, or communion table cloths that were in there, and I picked them up and they just literally shredded in my hands because of the exposure that they had. So we moved them, and they're now in History Hall, all these little artifacts that we found. In the Presbyterian Church, if you're not familiar, they would have little glasses of juice about that big, and there were carriers for them. And they would be passed around, and people would just take the little cup for communion. And it wasn't a wafer, what was it?
Little square pieces
Little-
of bread.
Oh, yeah, they were like little crackers, little.
No, they were bread. I think.
Now it's bread, yeah.
No, but when I was a kid,
It
it
was
was like
bread?
white bond bread that somebody cut in
Cut
little
in pieces.
perfect squares.
Yes, yes, that's right. Now, we now do communion, in both species, but we're not using the little things anymore. In addition to, those displays, they're in a case, we have an artist among us, her name is Karen Russell, and she took the colors of our stained glass, which are pastels, and made a huge, round, almost looking stained glass picture that she painted, and that will be on display, and it has religious symbols within it that she's gonna have to explain to people, because I only caught a couple. She had a lot more in there. It's absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Then, as people stroll through the hall to see the history of the church and the many people who inhabited that building, there will be light refreshments in the lounge, which is in the Christian Ed building. If it's a nice day, I'm hoping that we'll be able to put some of the tables out in the courtyard so people can go from the lounge out into the courtyard and enjoy the beauty of that whole area. As I said, it's absolutely amazing how many people have worked for this particular celebration, the 130th year of that building, which, by the way, I'm still working on. There's a leak I've got to get done. So I'm working on that too. I'm always working on something that needs to be done.
For certain.
Yes, and he knows, because I think I'm there more than I'm home anymore. So I wish that you would all, if you could, come on Sunday and celebrate with us. You will hear beautiful music, and you will see people that perhaps you haven't seen in a long time. I've been told we hope to have over 100 people with us that day, and I look forward to seeing you. And if you have any questions for either of us, we're here. Thank you.
Questions for?
All questioned out?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Donna, this is not in regards to the church, so excuse me for getting off the subject for just a moment. The last time I saw you was several years ago, I think it was even before COVID. We were standing in front of the Historical Society, and we were reciting Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by
Yes.
Robert Frost.
Mhm.
I would love it if we could do that again. Start that as a tradition again. There were only a
Okay.
few of us, but I think it's one of those things that can grow and grow, and it was a wonderful moment, and, let's work on that.
Okay, that sounds good.
We
One
have
more
to
thing.
memorize that for our English teacher,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Hester.
My question relates to the chairs, the 3 chairs that we picked up from the church.
Okay.
Does any, the old,
Yes.
do you know the dates of when they were first put into use by any chance? Are they as old as the building, or did they come
Pictures, I think they
sometime?
were original, don't you
They
think?
were, I think they were original too, because we have pictures of, there's been several iterations of that church. The
Right.
latest one was done in 2010.
Right, yeah.
Then 1964 was when they had done others, and then there was one that was done in the 50s, I think it was. So, but those chairs, I think, have
Have
been there
always
from the
been in-
get-go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so, I
So
think they're original.
130 years old.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're beautiful too.
perfect, yeah.
Thank
Thank you,
goodness.
yeah.
They were in the sanctuary, yeah. Yeah.
Years ago.
Years ago. They're with the Historical Society. Yeah, there were a lot of platforms, that church had, and you would remember it much more than I would. But it really wasn't very ADA friendly, so now it is. Now you can just go right on to the floor of the sanctuary.
Thank you.
Steps were murder,
It was a lot of steps.
a lot of steps
Yeah.
Yeah.
going up to the altar.
Yeah, and there were steps where the chorus was, the choir was, and steps where the organ was, and there were steps in the front where the chairs were. There were a lot of steps. But, kind of crowded in, really. And the pews were,
There were 2 aisles.
yes, there wasn't one down the middle.
no.
There was one.
No,
No,
not
there wasn't one
originally.
down the
There
middle.
were 2 side, it's like a rounded area, and the 2 aisles, seating on both sides and then seating in the middle. So there was no one main
No
aisle,
center.
for example, for a wedding,
Yeah,
it never really worked well.
Right.
And then, I guess that was the 60s when they remodeled,
Yeah.
they got rid of that and they put new seats in.
At one point, they had closed off the narthex where, the windows were inside the wall.
The wall,
And-
yeah.
And then those were taken away and there was a light, we have light. So, yeah.
And one thing I remember so clearly, in the church, when you face the front, on the right-hand side, there were garage doors that opened up and it was a stage. Because for Children's Day, we always had performances there, and it's broken into 3 rooms, but it was one big hall, and that is actually where my first Sunday school class was. And they had all the kids of all the ages in there together before they built the Christian Ed building. And one thing, I wanna add one thing, one little advertisement. We have a sewing group, so if anybody would like to just come and either learn to crochet or knit or quilt or anything, we have people that do it all. Or if you just wanna come for fellowship and bring your crocheting or your embroidery, we would love it. We're making some things to sell in our little store, but it's more of a time of fellowship. And we already have people that don't belong to the church, so you don't have to feel that you don't belong, because everybody belongs. And it's on the 1st and 3rd Thursday at 10 o'clock. And we would love to have anybody who would like to come and join us.
Yeah, that Christian Ed building was built in 64, and, the hope was that the Sunday school would grow, and so one section of it, was a flat roof so that they could build a 2nd story. However, we now have a lot of empty rooms, although it's on Sunday school, there's still kids there, but, we did have, what's the name of the program? It was?
Head Start was there
Head
for a
Start.
while.
Head Start
Yes.
was there for like 9
And when
years.
Hammonton was on split session, we had the kindergarten and 1st grade in that building for years.
And the special ed were in Fellowship Hall,
Right.
and so
And
they,
did
yes.
Murphy have her school, Joe Murphy's wife, Barlow, didn't
I
she
think
have?
that was the
That
Methodist
was
church.
the Methodist church.
Mhm.
She was in
They,
the,
she had it
no,
now.
she was in the
Methodist
Methodist.
Church, yeah.
Yeah, cause my kids went to that.
Okay,
Oh,
I thought it was
yeah.
a
Methodist,
Methodist.
Yeah, so and that now, we're hoping that Head Start is now called Pathstone, hoping that the migrant children will be back next summer. We had to go through all kinds of things in order for that to be a case.
Head Start is down here in the building.
Right, and then Pathstone is now in Millville rather, and they want to come to Hammonton because they've been picking up these little kids here in Hammonton and having to drive them all the way to Millville.
Really?
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's kinda
it wasn't working, so, one of the former teachers from Head Start in our church, she remembers being there and said, no, that's a good place, and so she's been going through all the state stuff in order to get approved, and I think we're one step away from approval for next summer.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Any other questions?
Think about it.
So the service is
Right.
what time
11.
Sunday? 11, and if you're unable to make that, will you be able to go into the church and see what you guys have done at any other time, special times? or-
Yes, right after church, at noon, then there'll be, that whole area will be open, and things will be on display there. So, if you ever come, if you can't come on Sunday, if you ever come on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday between 9 and 12, there's always people in the basement, and they can show you that you, upstairs.
And maybe I misunderstood you, did you say at one point there was 2 Presbyterian churches, or was one the Missions Church?
Well, it was sort of a mission, but they called themselves the Presbyterian Church. They were, on Tilton and Pleasant. It looks like a duplex house there now. It's like a 2-story duplex. That was the Italian church. That's where they were. And so the Presbyterian Church on Bellevue Avenue said, okay, we're the first ones. So it went by first for a while, but they dropped the first, I think around the time Reverend Hinch came. Because there used to be a sign, because one of the pictures has the sign of the First Presbyterian Church. So I think he got rid of that.
I always remember that, but I
Yeah.
never knew why it was the first
Yeah, it was the
Presbyterian
first.
church.
Well, it's really strange because the church is registered as the Presbyterian Church at Hammonton. Why at, I don't know, but that's where how it's registered. That little piece of history somewhere.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, both, and we look forward to seeing everybody on Sunday. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.